McEwan's Levy.
Life is too short to be drinking shitty beer.
Welcome to another edition of Bands, Bikes and Booze Reviews. First things first, I do apologise for the noise out there. Matey over the road is doing something with his pressure washer. Not sure what, but he's been doing it all afternoon and fuck knows what his water bill's going to be like. Anyway, that's that out of the way. Second one is, this is McEwan's Levy. Traditional Scottish beer, as it's called. Now, I've got this from round the corner, and I don't know whether I should tell you this now or later, mate. No, fuck it, I'll tell you now, right? It's out of date, and I don't know what the fuck he's doing to me, because, well, I do know what he's doing to me. He's selling me out of date beer, because I bought this round the corner just a week or two ago, and that's out of date. 31st of October 2021, 30th of November 2021. So, it's definitely out of date. Percy, stop it. I'm sure he's laughing at me, isn't you, mate? If you could see his face. You little twat. Come up here. Come up here. Oh. Get out of it. I've just seen what you've been licking. Right, what do you think of that, Percy? Any good? No? Yes? No? Yes? No? No, not impressed. McEwan's, as you know, as I just said, are a subsidiary, or have been taken over by Marston's. They were originally an independent brewer. In the 30s they merged with, do you remember Younger's Tart and Bitter? Do you remember that? Subscribers or viewers of a certain age, I certainly remember it. I can't remember, I probably tried it at some party when we ran out of everything else and that was all that was available. But I do remember the McEwan's export, which is still a very popular beer, would you believe? It's one of the fourth highest selling beer or ale in a can across the world, which to me is absolutely amazing. When I first heard that John Smith's was the biggest seller out of all the canned ale in the world, that blew my mind. When I found out Tetley's was the second highest, that blew my mind as well. And I'm just thinking, I very much liken it to pop music. Yes, pop music is popular. Is the actual content very good? In a word, personally, I don't think so. Same goes for the beer. John Smith's, Tetley and McEwan's really are not the pinnacle of English brewing, and that's sad, but that's where we are now. In with Percy, eh? In with Percy, eh? Not interested. You just want your dinner, don't you, mate? Get out of it. But yeah, we've got some of this stuff. Now, this is, it says traditional Scottish beer, dark in colour, light in taste. Now, I've been looking at the back of this, and for all intents and purposes, from the description and the ABV, this is a mild, this is a dark mild. It says during the 19th century the government introduced the shilling system, which was duty levied based on barrels of beer, dependent upon strength. The stronger the beer, the greater the levy. Honouring this uniquely Scottish tradition, McEwan's Levy is extremely drinkable Scottish beer that balances roast flavoured notes and the residual sweetness with roasted coffee and hazelnut aromas. To me, that just describes, I'm going to put you down, Percy, because you're fucking heavy, mate. That just describes to me a dark mild. Now, this is a Marston's beer, so I'm expecting zero flavour, zero aroma, nastiness in aroma coming out the bottle, and just general all-round disappointment. But I could be proved wrong, so let's get it open and let's see what's going on. Before we do, quick rundown of the beer. It says it's a traditional Scottish beer. In fact, what this is called in Scotland, Scotland has its own sort of designation, and you have heavies, wee heavies. This is a light, and the reason it's called a light, even though it's a dark beer, is because of the ABV. A heavy is obviously a strong beer. That would be like a traditional Scottish ale, which are up about the 7 or 8% mark. If you get a good one of them, they are fantastic. Very similar in style to English old ale and barley wine. You've also got heavies, and then as they say on here, you've got the shilling system. Now, interestingly enough, McEwan's Levy, from what I can gather, has been discontinued or retired. But McEwan's still do a beer that's called a 60 shilling, and the ABV is the same, the style is the same, and I'm just wondering whether they've just rebadged this and called it 60 shilling. But that wouldn't surprise me. That is potentially something that they would do. Why it's called Levy is obviously based in tradition, but the shilling system does give you an idea of how strong the beer is, and they do a 60 shilling, they do an 80 shilling as well. I think Green King, is it Green King or someone else does an 80 shilling beer, I think it is, which is based on a Scottish beer. But yeah, that's Scottish beer. To be honest, I'm not a massive fan of Scottish beer. I do like the Orkney Brewery though. That is one exception that I will say. There's a real nice thing going on up there in the Orkney Islands with that brewery. This stuff, however, this is brewed, as far as I know, and I could be wrong unless it says it on the back. Well, it's just got Marston's address, but I think this is brewed in Bedfordshire, because originally Wells and Young took over McEwan's. Well, it was Scottish and Newcastle then, and then I think they either merged or were bought out by Wells and Young, and of course Wells and Young, based in Bedfordshire. If you ever had Bombardier, that's a Wells beer. That was taken over by Marston's. So yeah, never seen Scotland in its life. It's a 500ml bottle. It's a 3.2% beer, and I've just read out the description. But yeah, to me, it's a mild. That's what I'm assuming. So let's get it open and let's see if it really is. Well, as I say, it's McEwan's. It's Marston's beer, so I'm not holding up much hope for flavour or an aroma, and as well as that, it's out of date. So how much that has got to do with it, I do not know. There's the logo of McEwan's. It's basically a Cavalier, and it's based on the I'll just put the mic on, shall I? It might help. Yeah, that's based on the image of the Laughing Cavalier. If you've ever seen that painting before, I can't remember the name of the artist. Alzheimer's has kicked in again, but he's on the bottle as well there too. So let's get it into the glass and see what's going on. Hopefully you can hear me a little bit better now. I've remembered the mic. Yeah, and that to me looks just like a mild. Hold it up to the light, there is a ruby shade to it, very much like a stout on the nose. Wow, is this the first Marston's beer with a little bit of aroma? Admittedly there isn't much, but I'm definitely getting roasted, slightly roasted notes on that. And a little bit of nuttiness as well.
It's a bit nutty.
Which is interesting. I'm wondering if Marston's out-of-date beer is better than their fresh beer. Now obviously this isn't bottle conditioned because it's a very low ABV beer. It don't half look good though. For a Marston's, that's very nice. Lovely head on that, nice sort of off-white head. The aromas aren't there in much abundance, but there is definitely some roasted notes on that. Interesting. Is this going to be a reasonably good Marston's beer? Probably, because they've just retired it. We can't have good beer spoiling our reputation, said McEwan's or Marston's. Let's get it down the hatch. wish me luck. And there is a little bit of flavour on that. Very watery though. You can definitely get the wateriness of it. But I'll tell you something, that is not bad. As milds go, it's not the best, but considering it's out of date and it's Marston's, this is not the worst mild I have tasted. What is going on? Tetley's have started, or have done, just a passable lager, and I don't mean it's fantastic, but it's passable by their standards. And now this, a reasonably good mild that they've decided to retire. Oh, unless of course they're using the, or it's rebadged as 60 shilling. I'll tell you something, that is not a bad mild. And I'm starting to get a little bit unnerved when in the same week you've got Tetley's doing a reasonably good lager and you've got Marston's doing a very nice mild. Wow, what the hell is going on? That is not bad, I have to say. It's not bad at all. So the characteristics of a mild, low ABV. Check, it's got that, 3.2%. Not massive in flavour. Check, it's got that too. Well, that's a Marston speciality, so I don't think that was much of a stretch on their part. Slightly roasted notes. Check. They also say about the drinkability of it. Yes, slightly thin body on it, and there is a slight wateriness to it. But that's what mild is. That's why people drank mild, because it was a session beer, didn't give you too much of a hangover, was relatively cheap, and at one point it was one of the most popular styles in the UK. However, I don't know whether I've told you, well I probably have actually, I don't know whether you've seen the videos, but whenever I review mild, I should give you a little rundown on why mild is not as popular as it was back in the day, in the sort of 50s and 60s. And the reason was because of unscrupulous landlords who would pour all the slops into the mild, and it was a way of basically recycling unwanted beer. Now, when I say slops, I mean it's the stuff that's collected in glasses, the half-finished ones, that would all be mixed together and just thrown in with the mild. And as you can imagine, it tasted pretty foul. And in certain cases, people just refused to drink it. And mild was the only one that people could get, or landlords could get away with. And it basically turned people off mild. So if you want to turn people off a style of beer, just collect all the fucking dregs. And because mild is dark, it is possible to do that. And that's what they did. And to be honest, I think that's pretty out of order. I know there was a lot of London landlords did that back in the day. Luckily it was before my time, but I wouldn't have been drinking this anyway. But it's nice, I have to say. Perfectly drinkable. A little bit of an aroma. There's a little sweetness on it as well. Does it mention sweetness on here? Scottish beer that balances roasted flavour notes and residual sweet. Oh yeah, it does say that, residual sweetness. Roasted coffee and hazelnut aromas. The coffee, yeah, there is that roasted malt stroke coffee type aroma, and a little bit of the flavour on it as well. The nuttiness, I'm not really getting that. No, I'm not really getting that. If you want to see that nuttiness that they talk about in mild, try the Thwaites Dark Mild. That's got it in quite an abundance, and that's a really nice mild, that is, that Thwaites mild. Quite cheap as well, you can get it from Home Bargains. Apparently you can get this in Home Bargains too. Well, you used to be able to, not anymore. I think if you want to try this, you're going to have to hunt down that 60 shilling stuff. I don't think that's available in bottles though. And again, I think the reason they've retired it is because mild is not popular. Although I have seen certain American craft brewers trying to brew mild now as well. I just hope they don't put American hops in it, because fuck knows what that will taste like. It'll be different, I'll tell you that, but I'm not sure whether it'll be nice or not. But when they say drinkable, you know, every fucking bit of marketing spiel on the back of a beer bottle says, oh, this is drinkable. But I have to say, and I really don't like saying it, because it's Marston's, but this is really drinkable. This is not going down the sink. For once, a Marston's that isn't going down the sink. And they've retired it. Fuck's sake. Couldn't make it up. Yeah, not bad. Quite impressed. So what's the verdict on McEwan's Levy? Well, everything about this says I should hate it. It's a Marston's beer that's out of date. It's a traditional Scottish beer. Now, I'm not a massive fan of Scottish beers on the whole. There are a couple of exceptions, but on the whole, not a massive fan. But this is just really good beer. It's a good attempt at a mild. And I'm not sure whether this is some quirk of fate that's happened with Marston's. I think they've nailed it. They've got the mild style pretty much nailed. Calling it a Levy, I don't know whether this is an old Scottish recipe or what, but calling it a Levy, they've tried to push, because it's McEwan's, they've tried to push this as the the Scottish angle. Mainly, I'd imagine, for the tourists, especially in America and Canada. They love all that. I know they do export. McEwan's export to Canada and the United States, and their Scottish ale stuff as well is quite popular out there. So, you know, they've got that whole thing going on out there. So maybe this is their attempt at doing that. But if they marketed that as a mild, or Marston's marketed it as a mild, I'd say they got it more or less spot on. Now, it's not the best mild I've tasted. That honour will go to the Elmsmore Brewery. Their Black Dog. For me, that is the best mild I've tasted so far. I've tasted the Timothy Taylor Ram Tam, or Dark Landlord Dark, which was, I think, attempting to be some kind of a mild, but that didn't really. And this is saying something I never thought I'd ever say. But a Marston's beer has more flavour than a Timothy Taylor beer. Unbelievable. Oh well, you lives and learns, don't you? This is nice. I'm going to drink all of this, even though it's out of date. So if I've got the 2 bob bits tomorrow, you'll know why. That's nice. I'm going to give that 7.5 out of 10, because even though they haven't called it a mild, it is, for all intents and purposes, a mild. 7.5 because unfortunately you can't get it anymore. However, and I could be proved wrong here, if you want it on draft, I don't know where you'd get that, maybe up in Scotland somewhere, but you could probably get that 60 shilling, which is, I think, from the description, it's this. And yeah, that's a shame, because if I did see that, I probably would buy that again. A Marston's beer that I'd buy again. Fuck me, I never thought I'd see that day. And they've retired it. What does that tell you about Marston's, eh? Fucking hell. Anyway, that's going to get solid 7.5 out of 10. I'm going to recommend it if you can find it. If you can find it and it's out of date, still buy it. I mean, that's what, 4 months, four and a bit months out of date. It don't taste bad at all. I do question sell-by dates on beers. Certainly for bottle condition beers, I think that's just nonsense, putting a sell-by date on that. But even for beers like this, I don't think a couple of months here or there would make a huge difference. I'm not going to try the Courage Best that's October last year out of date. But this, I have to say, I'll take my hat off to them, and I won't forget this. Marston's came up with a beer that I actually like, and I'm gutted they're not doing it again. There you go. Miracles will never cease. And remember, beer is working class champagne.